There is a moment in almost every woman's life when she looks at someone she cares about and silently asks herself, why do I feel so much? But he doesn't seem to feel the same way. And in that silence, a deeper question starts forming. Is there something I am missing about attraction, about men, about how desire actually works? Because if you've ever felt like you're giving your attention, your time, your energy, and still not receiving the same level of emotional pull in return, it can feel confusing, almost unfair, like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but still not becoming the person he can't stop thinking about. But here's what most people never understand. Attraction is not built the way we are taught to believe. It is not created by trying harder, texting more, proving your worth, or staying constantly available. In fact, in many cases, those things quietly reduce desire instead of increasing it. Male psychology is not as complicated as people think, but it is misunderstood. A man does not fall deeply for constant attention. He falls for emotional contrast, for presence that feels calm, not needy, for a woman who has her own life, her own rhythm, her own center, and does not lose herself in him. And this is where everything begins to change. Because when you stop chasing connection and start understanding how attraction naturally forms, you stop acting from fear and start moving from self-respect. You stop overgiving and start becoming grounded. You stop trying to force feelings and start creating space where real feelings can grow on their own. So before we talk about how desire actually builds in a man's mind, you need to understand one simple truth. You were never meant to chase attraction. You were meant to become the kind of presence that naturally creates it without effort. When it comes to male psychology, one of the most misunderstood truths is this: desire does not grow in full access, it grows in emotional space. Many women believe that being constantly present, constantly available, and constantly responsive will naturally increase a man's interest. But in reality, the human mind does not respond to excess with deeper value. It responds to contrast, distance, and a sense of curiosity. When something is always there, always predictable, and always within reach, the mind slowly stops feeling the need to explore it. Not because it is not valuable, but because there is no space left for imagination. Emotional space does not mean playing games or acting distant in a forced way. It simply means you are not overextending yourself to fill every silence, every gap, every moment of uncertainty. It means you are not building your entire emotional world around someone else's attention. You are still living your own life, still focused on your own direction, still emotionally centered in yourself. And that creates something powerful without you even trying. It creates mystery. And mystery is not confusion. Mystery is simply the natural result of a woman who is not overexposed. A man starts to feel curiosity when he cannot fully predict your next move, not because you are inconsistent, but because you are not over-explaining every part of yourself. You are not giving away every thought, every feeling, every reaction immediately. There is a rhythm to you, a natural balance between connection and individuality. In male psychology, this balance is deeply important. When a man senses that a woman is emotionally independent, something shifts inside him. He begins to pay more attention, not less, because now he is not just experiencing her presence, he is also trying to understand her. And understanding creates investment. The mind naturally attaches itself to what it needs to figure out. But when there is no emotional space, when everything is fully available, fully explained, and fully predictable, the attraction curve drops. Not because the woman is less valuable, but because the experience becomes flat. There is no tension, no curiosity, no pull. And without that pull, desire struggles to deepen. This is why emotional space is so powerful. It allows a man to miss you without feeling pushed away. It allows him to think about you without feeling overwhelmed. It allows him to wonder about you without feeling pressured. And in that space, something very important happens. His mind starts to fill in the gaps on its own. And what the mind creates on its own often feels more powerful than anything directly shown. Because imagination is where emotional attachment grows. Not in constant access, but in thoughtful distance. Not in overgiving, but in balanced presence. So when a woman learns to stay centered in her own life, to hold her own energy, and to not collapse into overavailability, she is not losing connection. She is creating the exact conditions where desire naturally has room to grow. Confidence in male psychology is not about being loud, dominant, or trying to prove anything. It is something far quieter, but far more powerful. It is the feeling a woman carries when she is not seeking approval in every moment, when she is not adjusting her personality to be liked, when she is not waiting for validation before she feels good about herself. This kind of confidence is not performed, it is lived, and it changes the entire way a man experiences attraction. Most people misunderstand attention. They think that the more attention you give, the more value you show. But in reality, attention without self-confidence often feels like neediness. And neediness, even when it comes from a good place, creates pressure in the dynamic. It shifts the energy from "I enjoy you" to "I need you to respond to me." And that shift is exactly what reduces emotional attraction over time. True confidence is different. It is calm. It is steady. It does not rush to fill silence or panic when things slow down. A confident woman does not feel the need to constantly remind someone of her presence. She simply exists fully in her own space, and because of that, her presence feels more valuable, not because she is doing more, but because she is not overdoing anything. In male psychology, this creates a strong emotional signal. A man starts to sense that he is not dealing with someone who is emotionally dependent on his reaction. Instead, he is interacting with someone who is whole on her own. And that is deeply attractive on a subconscious level, because it removes pressure from the connection. It allows him to feel free instead of responsible for someone's emotional state. And when a man feels emotional freedom in a connection, he naturally leans in more, not because he is being chased, but because he is not being pulled too tightly. This is where attraction becomes natural instead of forced. He begins to notice small things, the way she speaks, the way she carries herself, the way she does not over-explain her worth. And slowly, interest builds without effort. Confidence also shows in how a woman responds to uncertainty. Not every moment in connection is clear. Sometimes there is silence. Sometimes there is distance. Sometimes there is unpredictability, and a confident woman does not panic in those moments. She does not immediately assume loss or rejection. She stays grounded. She continues living her life, and that emotional stability is incredibly powerful because stability creates trust, and trust creates attraction. When a man sees that a woman is not easily shaken, not easily desperate, and not easily thrown off balance, he begins to respect her energy. And respect is the foundation where deeper attraction grows. Without respect, interest fades quickly. With respect, interest deepens over time. So confidence is not about trying to stand out. It is about not collapsing inward when things are uncertain. It is about not overgiving to secure attention. It is about not lowering your own standards just to keep someone close. Instead, it is about staying centered in yourself, even when emotions are involved. And when a woman embodies that kind of quiet confidence, she does not need to chase attention. She naturally becomes someone a man pays attention to without even realizing why. Emotional control in male psychology is one of the most powerful, yet least understood foundations of long-term attraction. It is not about suppressing feelings or acting cold. It is about how a woman handles her emotions without letting them control her behavior, her decisions, or her sense of self-worth. Because the truth is, emotions are natural in connection, but the way they are expressed can either create depth or create instability. And instability is what slowly weakens attraction over time, even when initial interest is strong. When a woman reacts too quickly, over-explains her feelings, or becomes emotionally intense in uncertain moments, the dynamic starts to feel heavy for the other person, not because emotions are wrong, but because they become unpredictable and overwhelming. In male psychology, emotional overwhelm often leads to distance, not because a man doesn't care, but because he processes connection through space and calmness. When things feel too emotionally charged too often, he begins to step back to regain balance. Emotional control, on the other hand, creates a completely different experience. It is the ability to pause before reacting, to understand what is actually happening before responding, to not let temporary feelings turn into permanent actions. This does not mean hiding emotions. It means expressing them in a grounded, steady way rather than an impulsive or anxious way. And that difference is what builds respect, because respect is not built when everything is perfect. It is built when emotions are present, but still handled with maturity. When a woman can feel something deeply but still respond calmly, it sends a powerful subconscious message. She is stable within herself. She is not easily shaken. She is not dependent on emotional validation to stay balanced. And that creates emotional safety in the connection. And emotional safety is a key driver of attraction. Many people think attraction is only excitement, but real attraction has two layers: excitement and safety. Without safety, excitement becomes chaos, and chaos is not sustainable. A man may be drawn in initially by intensity, but he stays because of peace, because of consistency, because of emotional grounding. When a woman is emotionally controlled, she does not overreact to small changes in behavior. She does not assume the worst instantly. She does not create emotional pressure in every silence or delay. Instead, she observes. She understands. She gives space for things to unfold naturally. And this creates a very different emotional environment in the relationship. It feels lighter, it feels more stable, and it feels more real. In male psychology, this kind of energy is deeply respected because it removes pressure. It allows a man to be himself without constantly feeling like he is walking through emotional triggers. And when pressure is removed, connection feels safer. And when connection feels safer, a man naturally opens up more, engages more, and invests more emotionally without feeling forced. But the most important part of emotional control is internal. It is not just about how you react to him, but how you stay connected to yourself. A woman with emotional control does not lose her identity inside feelings. She does not abandon her own standards, values, or self-respect just because emotions are strong in a moment. She stays rooted. Even when things feel uncertain, she does not collapse inward. And that inner stability is what creates depth and attraction, because it shows strength without aggression, softness without dependency, and emotion without chaos. It is a balance that is rare, and because it is rare, it becomes memorable. And what is memorable in connection often becomes what is emotionally attached over time. Mystery in male psychology is not about hiding who you are or playing confusing games. It is much more natural than that. It is the presence of depth that is not immediately exposed. It is the way a woman allows herself to unfold slowly instead of revealing everything at once. Because attraction is not built in full understanding, it is built in discovery. And when everything is already known too quickly, the sense of curiosity begins to fade. When a woman over-explains herself, constantly fills every silence, and shares every detail of her thoughts and emotions immediately, there is no space left for imagination. And imagination is where emotional attachment quietly grows. The human mind is naturally drawn to what it does not fully understand, not because confusion is attractive, but because curiosity creates emotional investment. The mind wants to explore, to figure out, to connect the dots. And that process is what deepens interest over time. Mystery does not mean being distant or emotionally unavailable. It simply means not rushing intimacy and communication. It means allowing moments to breathe. It means not feeling the need to explain every feeling in real time or justify every action immediately. When a woman is comfortable with pauses, with silence, with natural pacing, she creates a rhythm that feels more grounded and more intriguing. In male psychology, this slow unfolding creates a strong internal pull, because instead of feeling like everything is already solved, a man feels like there is still more to understand, and that still more becomes mentally engaging. He starts paying attention not just to what is being said, but how it is being said. He notices patterns. He becomes more observant. And this quiet mental engagement is what builds emotional curiosity. But when everything is too direct, too predictable, or too emotionally exposed too early, that curiosity has nowhere to go. There is no mental challenge, no emotional depth to explore. And without that exploration, interest often stays shallow. Not because the woman lacks value, but because the experience lacks layers. Mystery also comes from emotional independence. A woman who does not center her entire emotional world around one person naturally carries a sense of individuality that cannot be easily mapped. She has her own thoughts, her own routines, her own emotional life that does not revolve around constant sharing or approval. And that creates a sense of depth that is felt even in silence, because in male psychology, what feels fully accessible often feels less valuable over time. But what feels layered, what feels like it has different sides that reveal themselves gradually, becomes more engaging. It creates a feeling that there is always something more to discover. And that feeling keeps attention alive longer than constant availability ever can. Mystery also protects emotional balance. When a woman does not rush to respond to everything emotionally or reveal every internal reaction instantly, she gives herself space to process, and that processing creates more thoughtful expression. It prevents emotional overload in communication. It keeps interactions lighter, calmer, and more intentional. And this calmness combined with depth is what makes mystery powerful. It is not about hiding. It is about pacing. It is about allowing connection to grow instead of forcing it to appear fully formed too quickly. Because real attraction is not built in instant clarity, it is built in gradual discovery. And when a woman understands this, she no longer feels the need to rush her presence or explain her entire world to be understood. She simply allows herself to be experienced slowly, and in that slowness, curiosity grows naturally, attention deepens naturally, and emotional connection becomes something that develops instead of something that is handed over too fast. Self-worth in male psychology is the quiet foundation behind almost every lasting form of attraction. It is not about arrogance, superiority, or acting like you are better than others. It is something far more grounded. It is the internal belief a woman has about what she deserves, what she will accept, and how she allows others to treat her. And this internal standard is felt instantly in how she speaks, how she responds, and how she carries herself in connection. When a woman has strong self-worth, she does not chase validation. She does not over-explain her value. She does not try to convince someone to stay interested in her. Instead, she naturally communicates through her behavior that she is already enough on her own. And this changes the entire dynamic of attraction. Because in male psychology, what feels easy to access is often not deeply respected, but what feels valuable and self-contained naturally gains attention and consideration. Self-worth shows up in small moments more than big statements. It shows in how she responds when someone is inconsistent. It shows in how she handles silence. It shows in whether she lowers her standards just to keep connection alive or whether she stays aligned with what feels right for her. A woman with self-worth does not panic in uncertainty. She does not rush to fix every gap or overextend herself to maintain attention. She understands that mutual effort is the foundation of real connection, and this creates something very powerful emotionally. It communicates that she is not emotionally dependent on someone else's presence to feel complete. She enjoys connection, but she does not rely on it to feel whole. And that emotional independence is deeply attractive because it removes pressure from the relationship. It allows space for natural interest to grow instead of forced attachment. In male psychology, pressure often reduces emotional attraction over time. When someone feels that they are responsible for another person's emotional stability, the connection can start to feel heavy. But when a woman has self-worth, she does not place that emotional responsibility on someone else. She manages her own emotional balance. She supports herself internally, and that creates a sense of ease in interaction. Ease is very important in attraction because ease allows authenticity. It allows both people to show up without fear of emotional collapse or constant expectation. And in that environment, attraction becomes more organic. A man begins to relax into the connection instead of feeling like he has to constantly maintain it. And when people feel emotionally free in a connection, they naturally invest more. Self-worth also protects emotional boundaries. A woman who knows her value does not accept inconsistent effort as something normal. She does not normalize confusion or emotional imbalance as something she has to adjust to. Instead, she recognizes patterns. She observes behavior, and she responds based on what is actually being shown, not what she hopes will eventually appear. And this clarity creates respect, because consistency is not demanded through words, it is observed through behavior. And when a woman does not lower her standards just to keep someone close, she naturally becomes more respected in the dynamic. Not because she is demanding, but because she is self-aligned. The most powerful part of self-worth is that it removes desperation from behavior. And desperation is what often reduces attraction without people realizing it. When there is no desperation, there is no chasing energy. And when there is no chasing energy, space is created for genuine interest to develop. So self-worth is not about controlling someone else's feelings. It is about controlling your own standards. It is about knowing what you will and will not accept. It is about staying aligned with your own emotional integrity, even when feelings are involved. And when a woman lives from that place, she does not need to force attraction. She becomes the kind of presence that naturally attracts respect, attention, and deeper emotional investment simply because she is not willing to lose herself to gain someone else. At the end of all of this, there is one simple truth that changes everything about how attraction works. You were never meant to chase someone into feeling something for you. Real desire does not grow under pressure, and it does not survive emotional imbalance. It grows when a woman is centered, grounded, and fully connected to her own life first. Because the moment you stop trying to earn attention and start focusing on your own emotional stability, something shifts naturally in how people respond to you. You become calmer, you become less reactive, you become more present in your own energy instead of constantly scanning for validation. And that presence is what creates real impact in connection. Male psychology is not about games or manipulation. It is about energy, behavior, and emotional experience. A man is not just responding to words, he is responding to how he feels around you, whether he feels pressure or peace, whether he feels confusion or curiosity, whether he feels emotional weight or emotional freedom. And the truth is, the most memorable kind of woman is never the one who tries the hardest. She is the one who is already complete on her own and chooses connection from a place of wholeness, not emptiness. That is what creates natural respect. That is what creates lasting attraction. So if there is one thing to take from all of this, it is simple. Stop trying to force feelings and start focusing on becoming someone who does not lose herself in the process of connection. Because when you are emotionally aligned, self-aware, and grounded in your own worth, you don't have to chase anything. The right kind of attention will not need convincing. It will naturally find its way to you and stay.